It was a bright Saturday morning, and I had spent hours preparing for the family barbecue I'd promised my children and grandchildren. The backyard was a warm mosaic of sunlight, freshly trimmed grass, and the aroma of sizzling marinated meats that had been left to soak overnight. I had meticulously planned every detail: table set, drinks chilled, and side dishes arranged for sharing. In my mind, this barbecue was more than a meal. It was a gesture of care, a way to bring the family together, to celebrate connection and love after a week of busy schedules and missed opportunities. I looked forward to seeing everyone's faces, imagining the laughter of children running across the yard, the chatter of adults catching up, and the simple comfort of family in a shared space. The invitations had been extended early in the week. Everyone had confirmed, and my heart lifted with the anticipation of a gathering that promised warmth, joy, and connection. I imagined my son's family arriving with smiles, my daughter-in-law chatting enthusiastically about her week, and all the small interactions that make these moments memorable. The first arrivals were early. As expected, my son and his kids. They brought a jovial energy, helping set the tables and adding to the excitement of the morning. Their laughter was contagious, and I felt a surge of satisfaction as the backyard slowly transformed into the lively, familial setting I had envisioned. The children, full of energy, ran from the swings to the sandbox, their voices mingling with the sizzle of food on the grill. The air was thick with the smell of charcoal, spices, and the promise of a feast that would celebrate both food and family bonds. I glanced at the driveway, waiting for the next car to pull up, the one that would carry my daughter-in-law and her family. I had carefully coordinated the meal, making sure that there would be enough for everyone and anticipating that they would bring containers to carry leftovers home, as had always been the custom. I wanted the gathering to be seamless, comfortable, and harmonious, a reflection of the care and effort I had poured into it. When the car arrived, I noticed immediately that it was lightly packed. The doors opened, and my daughter-in-law stepped out, followed by her children. They greeted me politely, but a subtle tension rippled through the air. I realized, almost immediately, that there were no containers in hand, nothing to carry leftovers or contribute to the practical flow of the meal. The realization was unsettling. It wasn't about etiquette alone. It was about preparation, consideration, and shared responsibility. The absence of containers suggested a lack of attention to the unspoken rules that sustain a gathering, and a subtle worry stirred in my chest. I tried to brush aside the concern and greeted them warmly, inviting them to join the festivities. My son's children eagerly ran to play, and the barbecue continued, but I couldn't shake the awareness that something had shifted. The family dynamic, so carefully nurtured over years, suddenly felt fragile and unpredictable. I watched my daughter-in-law move around, chatting casually, yet never mentioning the lack of containers or expressing awareness of the logistical oversight. The children, oblivious to the subtleties, played happily. But I felt the weight of unspoken tensions and the challenge of managing both warmth and etiquette simultaneously. The meal progressed smoothly, despite the underlying discomfort. Conversations flowed, plates were passed, and laughter echoed across the yard. Yet, as the barbecue reached its midpoint, the practical problem became unavoidable: food needed to be packed. And without containers, it became impossible to maintain the order and efficiency that had characterized previous gatherings. I felt a creeping frustration, tempered by the knowledge that confrontation would only disrupt the fragile peace. I needed to navigate this situation delicately, balancing my role as host, the expectations of etiquette, and the subtleties of familial obligation. The absence of containers sparked a conversation, initially polite, then subtly pointed. I reminded my daughter-in-law about the tradition of bringing containers to share and carry leftovers, framing it as a matter of practicality and courtesy. Her response, light and dismissive, suggested she didn't view this as a significant issue. My heart sank slightly. It wasn't just about containers. It was about consideration, awareness, and mutual respect. The gesture of preparedness reflects not only practical responsibility, but also the acknowledgement of shared effort, an invisible thread that weaves together family cohesion. As the afternoon sun dipped lower, a subtle tension began to permeate the gathering. While most of the family remained blissfully unaware, enjoying food, games, and conversation, I observed the dynamics closely. My son-in-law's family had always had a complex approach to etiquette and responsibility, and this small oversight seemed to reflect broader patterns of entitlement and lack of attention to collective needs. The situation demanded discretion. I didn't want to cause a scene, yet I felt compelled to address the imbalance, to assert the standards and expectations that maintained harmony within the family structure. Children's laughter, the clink of plates, and the aroma of roasted meat filled the air, masking the subtle undercurrents of tension. I realized that the gathering, though outwardly joyful, had introduced a quiet challenge: how to navigate a breach of etiquette without disrupting relationships or creating resentment. My mind raced, exploring strategies to address the oversight without confrontation, suggesting improvised solutions, offering containers from my own kitchen, and gently guiding the family to adapt without shame or embarrassment. It was during this moment, as I facilitated the packing of leftovers with my own containers, that the deeper issue surfaced. Conversations between the adults revealed subtle patterns of disregard for shared norms. Comments made casually, gestures overlooked, and the absence of foresight illuminated a recurring dynamic that had often been glossed over in the name of politeness. The barbecue, intended as a moment of joy and connection, had inadvertently become a mirror reflecting deeper challenges in communication, respect, and familial responsibility. Yet, even in this tension, there were glimmers of understanding and resolution. By addressing the issue calmly, modeling flexibility, and providing practical solutions, I began to see a shift. My daughter-in-law, though initially resistant, began to acknowledge the practical necessity of preparation and foresight. The children, observing our interactions, learned subtle lessons about responsibility, cooperation, and the impact of small gestures. The barbecue, while imperfect, became a crucible in which both the challenges and potentials of family dynamics were revealed, offering opportunities for reflection, growth, and adjustment. By the end of the afternoon, the immediate logistical challenges were resolved. Food was packed, tensions eased, and the gathering concluded with smiles and farewells. Yet the experience lingered in my mind, prompting reflection on family dynamics, expectations, and the ways in which small actions, or the lack thereof, can illuminate deeper truths about care, respect, and mutual responsibility. I realized that such moments, though seemingly minor, carry lessons about the importance of preparation, awareness, and attentiveness in sustaining relationships. The evening quiet brought space for reflection. I considered not only the events of the barbecue, but the patterns they revealed: how entitlement, lack of foresight, and casual disregard for shared norms can erode harmony, and how gentle guidance, modeling behavior, and patient instruction can restore balance. The incident underscored the value of observation, the importance of proactive engagement, and the role of structured guidance in maintaining cohesion within complex family networks. It also highlighted the power of subtle leadership. By addressing the challenges with calm, strategic responses, I could maintain both authority and harmony. The experience reinforced the understanding that family interactions are layered, influenced by individual habits, expectations, and histories, and that small oversights can reveal deeper dynamics that merit attention and intervention. Through patience, strategy, and principled engagement, it is possible to transform moments of tension into opportunities for learning, growth, and strengthened bonds. The days following the barbecue were quiet, but the undercurrents from that afternoon lingered in my thoughts. I found myself reflecting on the subtle signals that had gone unnoticed before the casual disregard for preparation. The assumption that someone else would always take responsibility, and the small ways in which respect for shared effort can be overlooked. These reflections weren't about punishing anyone, but about understanding the patterns that shape family behavior and learning how to guide interactions toward balance and mutual consideration. I reached out to my daughter-in-law later that week, under the guise of casual conversation. We spoke about family gatherings, routines, and responsibilities, and I gently brought up the importance of being prepared for shared meals. Her response was initially defensive, brushing off the oversight as unimportant. Yet, as I framed the conversation around care, respect, and the comfort of the children, she began to listen more attentively. I emphasized that preparation wasn't merely about containers or logistics. It was a demonstration of thoughtfulness and engagement, a subtle but meaningful way to contribute to the shared joy of family time. As our dialogue deepened, I noticed shifts in awareness. She began to acknowledge that small gestures, such as bringing containers or contributing to the meal in tangible ways, created an environment of shared responsibility. We explored scenarios for future gatherings, discussing what each family member could bring or prepare, how to communicate expectations without creating tension, and how to involve children in practical contributions. Through this conversation, I sensed the beginning of a transformation recognition that preparation and attention to detail matter, and that these small acts ripple through the dynamics of care and respect. Meanwhile, my son observed silently, sometimes interjecting with neutral comments, other times simply nodding in acknowledgement. His awareness of the tension and my dialogue with his wife highlighted another layer of family dynamics, the way patterns of behavior influence not only immediate interactions, but also long-term relationships and perceptions. I realized that subtle guidance, framed positively, could not only address specific issues, but also model a broader approach to problem-solving and communication within the family unit. At home, I continued to reflect on the barbecue, documenting my observations and thoughts. I wrote notes about interactions, recorded patterns in behavior, and considered potential strategies for addressing recurring challenges. This act of reflection was not intended as criticism, but as preparation and organized approach to understanding and influencing family dynamics constructively. Through this process, I gained clarity about the role I could play in fostering harmony while respecting each individual's autonomy. In the days that followed, I noticed incremental changes. During minor errands and casual visits, my daughter-in-law began showing subtle signs of increased attentiveness. She inquired about schedules, asked practical questions, and gradually started to consider contributions she might make proactively. These shifts were small but significant. They demonstrated that awareness, patience, and gentle guidance can produce meaningful change over time. especially when focused on shared goals and mutual benefit. The children, naturally observant, began to mirror these dynamics. They noticed how small acts of preparation smoothed daily routines, and they started to assist in practical ways, setting the table, helping pack lunches, or carrying items for shared activities. This ripple effect extended the lessons of responsibility and consideration to the youngest members of the family, ensuring that behavioral shifts were reinforced through repeated practice and observation. I also recognized the importance of patience. Change does not occur instantly, and expectations must be realistic. By allowing space for reflection, observation, and gradual adaptation, I created an environment in which learning and awareness could take root organically. This approach reduced tension, prevented conflict, and encouraged voluntary engagement, rather than compliance imposed through criticism or confrontation. Another gathering approached a simple Sunday lunch with extended family. This event presented an opportunity to reinforce the lessons learned from the barbecue while observing how behaviors had shifted. My daughter-in-law arrived prepared, with containers in hand and an offer to contribute a dish. The contrast with the previous event was stark, and the positive energy was immediately palpable. Conversation flowed more smoothly, and the subtle tension that had previously lingered was replaced by cooperation and shared enjoyment. During the lunch, I observed interactions closely. My daughter-in-law engaged more thoughtfully, asking questions about preferences, offering assistance, and demonstrating attention to detail. My son responded with subtle acknowledgement, creating a feedback loop of positive reinforcement. The children participated eagerly, taking cues from the adults and practicing helpful behaviors themselves. The atmosphere, previously punctuated by minor friction, now reflected harmony and mutual respect. As the afternoon progressed, it became clear that the patterns of behavior were shifting not through confrontation, but through gentle reinforcement, awareness, and structured engagement. I reflected on how these lessons could be applied in broader contexts, workplaces, social gatherings, and other family events. The principles were universal, subtle guidance, encouragement of responsibility, and acknowledgement of contributions, foster cooperation, and reduce friction. Later that week, I spoke privately with my daughter-in-law again, emphasizing the importance of consistent participation and preparation in maintaining family harmony. This conversation was framed around mutual benefit and care rather than criticism. By highlighting the tangible impact of small gestures on collective experience, such as the children's comfort, the smooth flow of meals, and the shared enjoyment of gatherings, I reinforced the practical and emotional significance of attentiveness. In parallel, I nurtured the children's understanding of shared responsibility. Through simple explanations and modeling, they learned that contributing to family activities, bringing items, assisting with tasks, or helping peers enhances the collective experience. These lessons, though small, established a foundation for practical cooperation and empathy that would serve them beyond the immediate context of the family gathering. A subtle but meaningful change became evident during the next event. My daughter-in-law arrived with not only containers, but also a prepared side dish and a willingness to assist in setup and cleanup. The children joined in enthusiastically, and my son observed, offering encouragement. The sense of shared responsibility transformed the gathering into a more harmonious and joyful experience. The contrast with the initial barbecue underscored the power of reflection, guidance, and incremental learning in reshaping family dynamics. By this point, I recognized that the challenge of fostering attentiveness and preparation was not solely about etiquette. It was about reinforcing respect, consideration, and care within the family unit. The subtle oversight of containers at the barbecue had illuminated broader patterns that, if left unaddressed, could undermine cohesion. Through observation, gentle guidance, and reinforcement of positive behaviors, these patterns were gradually reshaped, illustrating the impact of intentional engagement in relational dynamics. The culmination of these efforts became evident during a larger family gathering that followed shortly after. Preparation, cooperation, and attentiveness were now normalized. My daughter-in-law contributed proactively. My son engaged thoughtfully, and the children participated willingly. The seamless coordination reflected not only practical readiness, but also emotional attunement and mutual respect. It was a testament to the power of consistent guidance, structured reflection, and positive reinforcement in fostering sustainable change. Reflecting on this period, the lessons were clear. Small gestures of responsibility and preparation ripple outward, shaping experiences, influencing behaviors, and reinforcing harmony. The initial oversight, though seemingly minor, revealed deeper patterns that, when addressed thoughtfully, can transform relational dynamics and cultivate lasting cohesion. Awareness, patience, guidance, and reinforcement are essential tools in nurturing these changes. The transformation within the family, though subtle, became more pronounced with each gathering. My daughter-in-law's willingness to participate thoughtfully in the preparation, coordination, and cleanup of events became consistent, and this change had ripple effects across the household. My son observed and adjusted his own approach, reinforcing positive dynamics with small acknowledgments and expressions of gratitude. Even the children, sensitive to adult cues, began to internalize lessons about contribution, awareness, and the impact of their actions on shared experiences. One afternoon, as I prepared for a midsummer picnic, I reflected on how much the household dynamics had evolved since that initial barbecue. Previously, a lack of containers and readiness had signaled deeper challenges, patterns of casual disregard for communal responsibilities, and an underestimation of the subtle ways that thoughtfulness strengthens relationships. Now, the shift was tangible. Cooperation, attentiveness, and shared effort were becoming ingrained habits. This continuity suggested that consistent guidance, gentle reinforcement, and patience were effective tools in reshaping family behavior over time. The picnic arrived, and with it, another opportunity to observe the progress. My daughter-in-law, arriving early, brought a thoughtfully prepared dish and additional containers for leftovers, demonstrating an awareness that extended beyond immediate practicality. She engaged with enthusiasm in setting up tables and arranging games for the children. My son, now more attuned to household dynamics, supported her without overstepping, creating a harmonious partnership that allowed both adults to participate fully without tension. The children, inspired by the energy of the adults, eagerly assisted with small tasks, their involvement reinforcing lessons in responsibility and attentiveness. Throughout the day, I noticed the subtle confidence my daughter-in-law exhibited. No longer defensive or dismissive, she approached tasks proactively and responded to challenges with flexibility and composure. The patterns of behavior that had caused concern earlier, disregard for preparation, casual assumptions about others' contributions, were now largely absent. It was evident that the family's collective habits were shifting toward cooperation, not merely because of rules or instructions, but because of awareness, reflection, and the consistent modeling of thoughtful behavior. The experience illuminated the importance of framing guidance positively. Instead of emphasizing shortcomings or past oversights, I focused on the benefits of attentiveness, the satisfaction of shared accomplishment, and the joy that comes from cooperative effort. By highlighting outcomes rather than deficiencies, I reinforced motivation without engendering defensiveness. This approach nurtured intrinsic understanding and encouraged voluntary engagement, which proved more sustainable than imposed compliance. During the picnic, an unexpected challenge tested the family's newfound dynamics. A sudden rainstorm disrupted the outdoor activities, sending everyone scrambling for shelter. In previous gatherings, such an event might have sparked tension, frustration, or blame. This time, however, the household responded with remarkable composure. My daughter-in-law quickly organized the relocation of food, containers, and children into the garage. My son assisted, guiding the children and offering encouragement. The children themselves adapted, understanding instructions and moving with purpose. The incident demonstrated that preparedness, composure, and collaboration had become habitual responses rather than reactive measures. After the storm passed, laughter and conversation resumed seamlessly. The brief disruption, which once might have magnified underlying tensions, instead became an opportunity to reinforce positive behaviors. My daughter-in-law's initiative, my son's supportive engagement, and the children's adaptability highlighted the cumulative effect of deliberate guidance and consistent reinforcement over time. The household had moved from reactive tension to proactive cooperation, illustrating that structured attention to behavior and habits can transform relational dynamics fundamentally. Later that evening, as the family gathered for dinner, I reflected on the broader lessons emerging from these experiences. The initial challenge, containers forgotten at the first barbecue, had been a small trigger revealing patterns that could have undermined cohesion. Addressing the issue through calm dialogue, structured guidance, and consistent modeling transformed these patterns. Not through confrontation, but through awareness and practice. The process illustrated that relationships are dynamic, shaped by subtle choices and behaviors, and that deliberate attention to these details can foster lasting change. In private conversations with my daughter-in-law, I continued to emphasize awareness, responsibility, and proactive engagement. Rather than dictating actions, I guided her to recognize the outcomes of her contributions and the impact on family dynamics. She began to internalize the lessons, adjusting behaviors instinctively and demonstrating a growing sense of ownership over the household environment. The shift reflected a deeper understanding that consideration, preparation, and attentiveness are forms of care, expressions of respect that strengthen relational bonds and nurture trust. The children, observing and participating, became agents of reinforcement. By internalizing these lessons early, they learned that their actions matter, that thoughtful participation enhances collective experiences, and that cooperation is both practical and rewarding. These early lessons, embedded through repeated practice and observation, laid the foundation for a lifelong understanding of responsibility, empathy, and the value of proactive engagement in social and familial contexts. One particularly revealing moment occurred during a family project that required coordination, setting up a backyard garden together. Tasks were divided, with my daughter-in-law taking responsibility for organizing materials and scheduling, my son assisting with tools and instruction, and the children participating enthusiastically. The cooperation was smooth, the atmosphere collaborative, and the end result, a flourishing garden, served as a tangible reflection of the transformation. It demonstrated that shared effort, guided awareness, and intentional participation yield both practical outcomes and strengthened relationships. Through these cumulative experiences, I observed that the family's evolution was not merely about specific actions, such as bringing containers or preparing dishes, It was about cultivating habits of thoughtfulness, awareness, and engagement that permeated daily interactions. The emphasis on preparation, proactive involvement, and attentive participation became a framework through which the family navigated challenges, celebrated successes, and reinforced cohesion. Each event, task, or interaction became an opportunity to reinforce these principles, creating a self-sustaining cycle of positive behavior and mutual respect. The broader implications were clear. Awareness and preparation in family contexts extend beyond etiquette or practical tasks. They influence trust, communication, and emotional well-being. When individuals contribute thoughtfully and engage proactively, relationships flourish, tension diminishes, and the household environment becomes nurturing and stable. Conversely, neglecting these principles, even in minor ways, can reveal deeper vulnerabilities, strain interactions, and erode trust over time. Recognizing this, guiding behavior constructively, and reinforcing positive habits are essential to fostering lasting harmony. By the end of the summer, these lessons had been internalized across the household. Gatherings, projects, and shared meals were now characterized by attentiveness, preparation, and cooperation. The initial oversight of containers at the barbecue had evolved into a catalyst for growth, reflection, and sustained behavioral change. My daughter-in-law's proactive engagement, my son's supportive partnership, and the children's participation reflected a family transformed through patient guidance, deliberate practice, and awareness of the impact of individual choices on collective harmony. This period also highlighted a more subtle, yet critical, insight. Change is incremental and requires both observation and reinforcement. Each positive action, however small, reinforces understanding and encourages repetition. Each collaborative effort strengthens relational bonds, builds trust, and nurtures mutual respect. Over time, these incremental improvements compound, producing lasting change in behavior, perception, and household dynamics. The combination of practical preparation and emotional awareness became the hallmark of family interactions. By consistently emphasizing responsibility, proactive engagement, and consideration for others, we created an environment in which cooperation was natural and harmony was sustainable. The lessons extended beyond specific events, influencing communication styles, problem-solving approaches, and conflict resolution strategies. Through repeated practice and observation, the household evolved into a resilient, thoughtful, and cohesive unit capable of navigating both minor challenges and significant disruptions with composure and care. As the seasons changed, the household continued to grow into a more harmonious and mindful space. Family gatherings were no longer fraught with tension over overlooked details. Instead, they became occasions of genuine collaboration and enjoyment. My daughter-in-law, once casual and dismissive about preparation, now arrived thoughtfully with containers, dishes, and even small surprises for the children. My son, attuned to these subtle shifts, reinforced positive dynamics with encouragement, creating a feedback loop of cooperation and mutual respect. The children thrived in this environment, learning through observation and participation that their contributions mattered and that attentiveness and care strengthened the bonds of family. The lessons of the initial barbecue extended into everyday life. I noticed how my daughter-in-law began planning in advance for school events, birthday parties, and even simple errands. She approached each task with consideration, mindful of the impact her actions had on others. The household operated more smoothly because each member understood their role and the value of proactive engagement. Small gestures, such as preparing a favorite snack for a child or helping with chores without being asked, became habitual, reinforcing a culture of attentiveness and shared responsibility. One afternoon, a minor mishap tested this newfound harmony. A sudden spill in the kitchen threatened to disrupt dinner preparations. Previously, such an incident might have provoked irritation or blame. This time, the response was measured and collaborative. My daughter-in-law calmly gathered cleaning supplies, my son assisted, and the children joined in with small tasks. The process was efficient, even enjoyable, and the incident concluded with laughter rather than frustration. The household had internalized the principles of preparation, cooperation, and emotional composure, demonstrating resilience in the face of unexpected challenges. These experiences underscored the broader significance of the lessons learned. The initial oversight of containers, which had caused subtle tension, had revealed patterns that, if unaddressed, could have undermined relationships and family cohesion. By addressing the issue through gentle guidance, modeling thoughtful behavior, and reinforcing positive habits, these patterns had been reshaped. The household became a space where responsibility, awareness, and attentiveness were understood not as obligations, but as acts of care that enriched every interaction. As the year progressed, I observed that these principles extended beyond immediate family gatherings. My daughter-in-law applied the same mindfulness to her workplace, friendships, and community interactions. The children, now accustomed to cooperation and attentiveness, displayed empathy and initiative in school projects, playdates, and team activities. The lessons from the barbecue, small but significant, had rippled outward, influencing behavior, relationships, and the perception of responsibility in multiple contexts. During a winter holiday gathering, the transformation was fully evident. My daughter-in-law arrived early, ready to help set up the space, with containers and contributions thoughtfully prepared. My son engaged in supporting and coordinating, the children assisted eagerly, and the energy was cooperative and joyous. The harmony was striking in contrast to that first barbecue when subtle tension had permeated the gathering. The household had become a microcosm of proactive care, attentiveness, and collaboration, demonstrating that deliberate, consistent engagement transforms relationships over time. This evolution was not limited to practical contributions. It encompassed emotional growth as well. My daughter-in-law had developed a heightened awareness of the needs and perspectives of others, learning to anticipate challenges and respond with composure. The children, through repeated observation and participation, understood that their actions had consequences and that thoughtful engagement nurtured trust and mutual respect. My son's supportive presence reinforced these lessons, creating a family culture where both practical and emotional responsibility were recognized as valuable and meaningful. Reflecting on these developments, I recognized that transformation in family dynamics requires patience, intentional guidance, and consistent reinforcement. Change is incremental, often imperceptible in daily interactions, but cumulative over time. Each small act of attentiveness, each cooperative effort, and each demonstration of care contributes to a broader shift in behavior and relationships. The family's evolution from tension to harmony exemplified how thoughtful intervention, modeling, and positive reinforcement can create sustainable change. Another significant aspect of this journey was the cultivation of self-awareness and accountability. By encouraging reflection, observation, and recognition of the impact of their actions, I helped each family member internalize principles of responsibility and consideration. My daughter-in-law, once unaware of the subtle cues and expectations that guided family interactions, now engaged intentionally, recognizing that her behavior influenced not only immediate outcomes, but also long-term relationships. The children, learning these lessons through practice and example, gained skills that would serve them throughout life: empathy, cooperation, and a sense of agency in shaping their environment. A pivotal moment came during a spring gathering when an unexpected problem arose. A neighbor's child accidentally knocked over a tray of food, threatening to spoil the meal. The household's response was immediate and coordinated. My daughter-in-law calmly reassured the child, cleaned up the spill, and helped redirect attention to ongoing activities. My son offered assistance. The children contributed where they could, and laughter replaced potential frustration. The incident highlighted the depth of the behavioral transformation. Preparedness, attentiveness, and composure had become ingrained responses rather than learned lessons requiring constant prompting. This progression reinforced the broader life lesson: attention to small acts of consideration and preparation fosters trust, strengthens relationships, and promotes resilience. The initial oversight, once a source of tension, had catalyzed growth across the household. By addressing challenges thoughtfully, modeling behavior, and reinforcing positive habits, the family had developed systems of interaction that balanced practical needs, emotional intelligence, and shared responsibility. These principles, cultivated in the microcosm of family life, extend to wider contexts, shaping social interactions, professional environments, and community engagement. Over time, I also noticed the emotional satisfaction that emerged from this harmony. The joy of shared meals, collaborative projects, and supportive interactions reinforced intrinsic motivation, making cooperation and attentiveness rewarding in themselves. My daughter-in-law expressed pride in her contributions. The children experienced the satisfaction of helping, and my son and I observed the unfolding of a household culture marked by mutual respect and proactive engagement. The transformation was holistic, encompassing both practical and emotional dimensions, illustrating that thoughtful, deliberate action strengthens both relationships and individual well-being. The culmination of this journey occurred during a summer reunion, with extended family visiting from out of town. My daughter-in-law arrived with careful preparation, contributions, and a calm, engaged demeanor. The children participated eagerly, helping with setup and anticipating needs. The gathering unfolded seamlessly, with laughter, shared stories, and genuine enjoyment. Observing this, I realized that the household had internalized the principles I had hoped to cultivate: attentiveness, responsibility, proactive engagement, and emotional composure. The family had moved from reactive tension to harmonious collaboration, demonstrating the power of reflection, guidance, and consistent reinforcement over time. As we concluded the reunion, I reflected on the journey from that first barbecue, where the absence of containers had revealed underlying dynamics, to the present moment of harmony and cooperation. The transformation illustrated that small oversights often signal deeper patterns, and addressing these patterns thoughtfully can produce profound, lasting change. The family had not only learned practical lessons about preparation, but also internalized broader principles of responsibility, empathy, and mutual respect. If this story resonated with you, please like this video to support more real-life stories of growth and resilience. Share it with friends or family who might benefit from these lessons. Subscribe to the channel for more narratives that inspire thoughtful engagement, and comment below with your reflections or personal experiences. Your participation helps build a community where awareness, preparation, and principled action are valued and amplified. Ultimately, the experience taught a timeless lesson. Even small acts or their absence can reveal patterns that affect relationships profoundly. By approaching challenges with patience, awareness, and deliberate guidance, it is possible to transform tension into harmony, foster responsibility, and cultivate resilience. Life often presents opportunities to grow through observation, reflection, and thoughtful intervention. In embracing these opportunities, we strengthen not only our relationships, but also our capacity for empathy, understanding, and principled action.